Picture two friends standing outside a moving truck on the same Saturday morning in the same suburban town. Both are 32 years old. Both make $95,000 a year. Both have spent the last several years disciplined enough to save exactly $80,000 in cash. Today, their paths split. The first, Marcus, walks into a bank and signs closing documents on a $400,000 home. He hands over his entire $80,000 as a 20% down payment, locks in a 30-year fixed mortgage, and drives away holding keys to a front door with his name on the title. The second, Elena, signs a 1-year lease on a comparable rental home 3 blocks away for $1,850 a month. She keeps her $80,000 completely intact and that same afternoon transfers every dollar of it into a broad market index fund. Neither one tells the other they've made a mistake. Both are convinced they've made the responsible adult decision. And for the next 30 years, the financial universe is going to run an uncompromising experiment on which one of them was right. The baseline is entirely equal. Marcus and Elena are the same age, the same income, the same starting capital. Marcus takes on a mortgage of $320,000 at a 6.5% fixed rate, which produces a monthly principal and interest payment of roughly $2,022. On top of that, he's carrying the real, well-documented cost of ownership. Property taxes near the national effective rate of about 1% of home value, roughly $4,000 a year. Homeowners insurance running close to $3,000 annually given how sharply premiums have climbed in recent years. And maintenance, the quiet expense category that most first-time buyers underestimate, typically running 1% to 2% of home value every year, another $4,000 to $8,000 depending on the age of the house. Combined, Marcus's true monthly housing outlay lands somewhere near $3,770 once you add the mortgage payment to taxes, insurance, and upkeep. Elena's monthly rent is $1,850, no property tax bill, no insurance premium for the structure itself, no surprise $9,000 roof replacement. Every month, the gap between what Marcus pays and what Elena pays comes out to almost $1,920. Elena doesn't spend that difference. She automates it directly into the same index fund holding her original $80,000. On day one, Marcus looks like the winner. He owns real property. His name is on a deed. Elena has a lease agreement and a brokerage confirmation email. If you ask 10 people in that moving truck parking lot who made the smarter move, the overwhelming majority would point at Marcus. Homeownership is the cornerstone of the American dream. Renting is what you do before you've made it. But day one isn't the scoreboard. 30 years is the scoreboard. For the first few years, the story looks exactly like the culture expects it to. Marcus builds equity with every mortgage payment. Elena's portfolio bounces with the market, up 1 quarter, flat the next. By year 3, Marcus has chipped a modest amount off his loan principal, and his home, appreciating at a long-run historical average of roughly 4% a year, has climbed in value to somewhere around $450,000. He feels like he's winning the long game. Elena's portfolio, meanwhile, has been quietly compounding both her original $80,000 and her monthly $1,920 surplus. It's grown, but it's less visually satisfying than watching a house appreciate on a Zillow estimate. Marcus tells people at dinner parties that renting is throwing money away. Elena doesn't argue, she just keeps automating. By year 10, the picture is starting to shift. Marcus's home has appreciated to roughly $590,000. He's paid down a meaningful chunk of his mortgage balance, and his equity, home value minus what he still owes the bank, sits at a respectable figure. He has built real, tangible wealth, but here's what Marcus isn't tracking. Every dollar he's poured into taxes, insurance, and maintenance for a decade, categories that build zero equity and generate zero return, has permanently left his net worth calculation. That money didn't disappear into thin air, but it also never compounded for him anywhere. Elena's portfolio, compounding at a long-run historical equity market average of roughly 8% annually, has crossed a threshold that changes everything. Her invested capital is now generating more in annual market appreciation than she originally put in during several of her working years. Her wealth engine has detached from her monthly contributions the same way any compounding asset eventually does. She still hasn't built a single ounce of home equity. She also hasn't spent a single dollar on a water heater replacement, a roof repair, or a special assessment. Fast forward to year 20. Marcus's home has appreciated to roughly $876,000. His mortgage is more than 3/4 paid off. On paper, he looks enormously successful, a homeowner with $750,000 of equity sitting in a physical asset. Elena's portfolio, compounding that same $80,000 lump sum alongside 2 decades of $1,920 monthly contributions at an 8% average annual return, has grown past $1.9 million. The gap that didn't seem to exist in year one has become almost impossible to ignore. Now the finish line, year 30. Both are 62 years old. Marcus's mortgage is fully paid off. His home, appreciating the entire time at that same 4% average, is worth approximately $1,297,000. After accounting for the roughly 6% in transaction costs he paid to actually convert that equity into cash by selling, his net realizable position is closer to $1,219,000. It is a genuinely impressive outcome for 30 years of disciplined mortgage payments. Elena's portfolio, having compounded her original $80,000 plus 3 decades of automated monthly contributions at an average 8% annual return, has grown to approximately $3.67 million. Review those numbers side by side. Marcus, $1,219,000. Elena, $3,670,000. Elena finishes with roughly $2.45 million more than Marcus. They started with the exact same income, the exact same savings, and the exact same $80,000 on the exact same day. Elena ends her working life with roughly 3 times Marcus's net worth, without ever owning a single square foot of property. Now, if I ended the analysis right here and declared that renting is objectively the smarter financial decision for everyone, I'd be committing the same sin as every oversimplified spreadsheet influencer online. This model looks clean because it ignores 3 real-world forces that determine whether Elena's outcome is actually achievable. First, leverage works in reverse when prices rise faster than expected. Marcus only put $80,000 down to control a $400,000 asset. If home values in his specific market appreciate faster than the national 4% average, his return on that initial $80,000 investment, measured against the appreciation of the full $400,000 asset, can meaningfully outpace what a simple average suggests. Leverage cuts both ways. It can also devastate a homeowner who buys at the top of a local market and needs to sell during a downturn. Second, rent is not fixed. This model assumes Elena's rent stays flat, which never happens. Median rents have climbed meaningfully over the past 2 decades, and every year her landlord raises the rent, her monthly investable surplus shrinks. If Elena's rent rises faster than her income over 3 decades, the gap between her and Marcus narrows considerably, and in a high cost of living market with aggressive rent inflation, it can close entirely. Third, forced discipline versus voluntary discipline. Marcus's mortgage payment is not optional. It's automatic, it's contractual, and it builds equity whether he feels motivated that month or not. Elena's monthly $1,920 investment only builds wealth if she actually transfers it every single month for 30 consecutive years without skipping, without diverting it to a vacation, and without pulling it out during a market downturn out of panic. The data on renters who claim they'll invest the difference and actually do it consistently for 3 decades is far less encouraging than the spreadsheet assumes. So how do you actually structure this decision without pretending either path is automatically correct? You run a 4-part framework. Step 1. Calculate your true local rent versus own gap, not the national average. Price out a comparable rental in your specific market against a comparable home purchase, including realistic property tax, insurance, and maintenance figures for that exact area, not a national blended number. In some markets, the gap barely exists. In others, it's enormous. Step 2. Treat the invest the difference strategy as a contractual obligation, not a hope. If you choose to rent specifically to invest the surplus, automate that transfer the same day your paycheck lands with the same rigidity as a mortgage payment. An uninvested difference is not a strategy. It's just spending money on rent with extra steps. Step 3. Factor in your actual time horizon and mobility needs. Homeownership carries substantial transaction costs on both ends, often 8% to 10% of home value between buying and selling costs combined. If there's a real chance you'll relocate within 5 to 7 years, those transaction costs alone can erase most of the equity advantage home appreciation would have provided. Step 4. Don't ignore the tax and legacy dimensions. Primary residence capital gains carry meaningful exclusions. Mortgage interest may offer deductions depending on your situation, and a paid-off home in retirement eliminates a major fixed monthly expense in a way a stock portfolio doesn't automatically replicate. These factors don't reverse the math in this specific model, but they matter in a complete financial picture. Marcus and Elena both stood at the same starting line at 32 years old with the same $80,000 and a genuine desire to build a secure future. Marcus chose the tangible, culturally validated path and built a genuinely strong 7-figure equity position. Elena chose the less visually satisfying path of automated compounding and built nearly 3 times his net worth on paper. Neither one made an irrational decision. They simply optimized for different variables, and over 30 years, the market rewarded pure compound growth more generously than it rewarded leveraged appreciation on a single, illiquid asset. The real mistake isn't renting and it isn't buying. The real mistake is choosing either path on emotion, cultural pressure, or a single spreadsheet you saw once without running your own numbers against your own city, your own time horizon, and your own actual discipline. So before you sign your next lease or your next closing document, ask yourself one question. Are you building equity in a place, or are you building compound growth in a portfolio? Because the answer that fits your real life is the only calculation that actually matters.